Hello, everyone. We are happy to see you today. My name is Stephanie McGarry. If this is your first time, I am a licensed therapist and a registered play therapist here in the Dallas area with my friends.
And I'm Tara Becker. I am a licensed master social worker, also here in Dallas, Texas. And Steph and I are so glad to be here with you today.
We are super, especially talking about this topic around social media and in a positive way. We are going to talk about how to use social media to cultivate kindness. So you're going to hear quite a few things from us today, some ground setting about what we need to know as parents and as caregivers, and some ideas how to use this tool that isn't going away anytime soon to cultivate kindness with ourselves and with others. So we hope that this is helpful for you as we walk through each slide.
Yeah.
So the first thing we're going to do, back to that level setting, is just kind of looking at the stats around social media. Even as I was pulling these up, I was so shocked. I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, I know social media is a thing with our teenagers, but wow. And then even thinking about pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic and how that has affected how much screen time. So these are just some stats.
I was gonna say they're just surprising for me, but it like hurts still to see them. So.
Yeah, it does. I even looking at that 95% of teens have access to smartphones. That's a lot. That's almost everybody. And even looking at that age group, if we're honing into one of the platforms, Snapchat, which I'm sure you guys have heard about, 48%. So almost half the percentage of US teens between that 15-year-old and 25-year-old. So we're thinking about our teens, so that 15, 16, 17, 48% of those use Snapchat, and we'll kind of go into what that is. I'm sure you already know, but we just want to put these stats up here for you to see some of the top 10 social media statistics, even thinking about cyberbullying and things of that nature. So about 20% of teens have been bullied. And so it's things that we also want to pay attention to as we're walking through our slides. So we just wanted to start off with getting some level setting around they are using it.
Yeah, of course. And, I know people might be joining us from all different kind of places when it comes to social media and tech, but a lot of us, the parents and caregivers, are also on at least some of these apps, if not all. So you might be like, oh my gosh, yes, this also reflects how I use social media, or you might be like, what is that app? So we're going to kind of keep going through everything.
So the interesting thing, as we talked about before, is this isn't going anywhere. Yeah. Social media isn't going anywhere. Our teens are now what they call digital natives. Yeah. So they are the generation where technology has always been in their lives. Social media has always been in their lives. And even though there are some serious effects, and we'll talk about some of those kind of the negative effects of social media, there are some positive things that we can do. And I love this kind of framework of creating a positive digital footprint. Yeah. Because as you think about us as adults and our jobs and applying to schools and things, when they are looking at your social media, looking at your LinkedIn. So how do you create a positive digital footprint and preparing our teens for that at a young age using social media for good? So again, we're going to kind of have a balance here of some of the maybe negative effects of it, but also how we can use it for the good, because it can be used for the good. So again, social media is not all bad. And on this slide, you're going to see some of the benefits of social media. And I'm curious, as you're kind of looking through the list, kind of think with yourself, with your teens, what have you seen actually really work well within social media? Does it help you and your family and friends stay connected? Yeah. I know during the pandemic times, so I mean, it was so helpful to be able to FaceTime my niece and nephew and be able to chat with people, especially for our teens that weren't in school. They could still have group meet and communicate with their friends. It also connects us to more volunteer opportunities to be able to get involved with different campaigns at a click of a button, show your support, or to contact your political representative. Like,
oh yeah,
it was just so amazing. I learned so much, and our teens are able to learn so much from that. You're gonna say something?
Well, and I was gonna say for me, I'm a parent, and so social media can connect me to like mom groups or like different, like you know, if I'm feeling isolated, that's a way for me to connect to communities when I can't meet in person, or like I really like to garden, so I can find out information about Texas and gardening. And so our teens are the same way. They can connect to communities. Maybe they're into something that there's not a lot of people at their school are into that thing. They can find a way to find community online, which is great.
Yes, find community, sharing ideas, that things that they're interested in. So whether that's music or art, and like you said, I may feel isolated as a teen in my school community, but I'm a part of a network where I feel like I belong. And so even though I may not feel like I belong at school, I know that at the click of a button, I can connect with someone who shares the same interest as I do. It also helps to connect teachers and students to each other as they're working through. Teachers are getting super creative with digital platforms in the classroom and connecting with teens and meeting them where they are. So again, there's more to add to this list, but social media is not all bad. And instead of pulling away from it, how do we lean into it in a kind way to help cultivate kindness? We're going to have a few videos in today's session, just because there's so much wisdom out there that we wanted to share with you. And so even as Tara and I were preparing for this, there were so many different directions that you that you could go. So we kept thinking, where do we start? Like, how do we even begin this conversation with caregivers? And we thought the first place to start is learning about what's out there already. You think you know, and then an update happens and you don't know. So let's start there. I'm gonna pass it over to Tara to get us started with what is out there.
And Steph helped me out with this because, you know, Instagram is the one that I know the best. You probably do.
Yes.
Most Instagram. So Instagram is a social media app where you upload photos, and you can also comment underneath, and you can like other people's photos. And there's something called stories. If you're already on Instagram, don't mind this simple explanation, but if you've never been on it, you might be curious. So stories are usually like a live video sometimes. So you might see your teen like talking to themselves, like filming themselves with something in the background. So they might be posting to Instagram. Twitter, I don't know. We should look up some stats on Twitter with teens. I don't know how much teens are on it, but it's just like a quick words only post. But sometimes Twitter can get intense because people are interested in a topic and they kind of go back and forth on Twitter. So that's something to know about Twitter. Snapchat is like the big one right now. If you Snapchat or TikTok dancing on Snapchat, like it's really, if you've seen your teens like practicing dances with their friends and videotaping, it's probably for Snapchat.
And that's one that we didn't put on here was TikTok, but I kind of put that along with Snapchat too, because they can all connect to each other.
You can take a video on TikTok and use it on Snapchat and or on Instagram. So
it's a
they all go. Or Facebook. You notice we didn't put Facebook on here because you might be, if you are older and also on Facebook. Facebook is kind of a thing of the past. To be honest, but they're not like super active these days for the most part. Be Real is a newer one. So I'm not on Be Real, but my understanding is, you know how like with Instagram, you choose a post, like it's usually something that you curate. Well, people were finding that on Instagram, they feel like people are being fake. And so Be Real is like has a timed alert to ask you to take a photo from this direction and then also facing forward, so to kind of prevent people from like staging photos. You're supposed to like be real in the moment. I still have some concerns with that with our teens because I feel like it might just make them feel anxious. They have to be on the ready all the time. And there's so much more out there to learn about these apps, but that's just kind of a little level set for us as we move forward.
And on the one pager that's going to come along with this, we have more information on each one of these. So feel free when you see that to click on each one of those, and it'll give you some more tips about how as a caregiver you can protect yourself and your teen with these.
Because there's so much more to learn about each of these and how they're used and healthy and unhealthy ways. So one of the things that we wanted to be sure and mention as we were doing this presentation is these apps are intentionally designed to get our attention, to honestly to be addictive. And so it can be really frustrating when you're watching your teen and they're just on these apps all the time and you want them to get off. So something just to kind of bear in mind is that the apps are designed to hold their attention, to keep them on there. They even have strategies to, we were just talking about this earlier, like if you're off the app for a certain amount of time, it might email you like, hey, things are happening.
You're missing out.
So posted, you're missing out, get back on here. And even for me, I have a really hard time getting off Instagram or putting my phone down. So we're gonna watch a quick clip called The Mental Health Dilemma out of The Social Dilemma, which is a documentary on Netflix. If you're interested in learning more about how apps and everything have been designed, our phones, to kind of keep our attention, it can be interesting to watch. But we're going to go ahead and hear from some experts about the impact of phone usage for teens.
They can't stop looking at social media.
Their brains have changed.
They become addicted.
And there's something very dangerous about that.
The number one problem, the number one psychiatric disorder among teenagers is anxiety. Typically, it's anxiety about needing to check in with social media.
There's another study that looked at fear of missing out, and it looked at kids who have high anxiety around missing out. Even though social media makes them more anxious, makes them more worried about missing out, they can't stop looking at it. That prefrontal cortex hasn't developed enough for them to be able to put it down, to say to themselves, it's not making me feel good.
The prefrontal cortex, this area of the brain that is involved in our cognitive control, our ability to process and direct our attention based on our goals, is the last part of our brain to develop.
This doesn't get completely myelinated until you're in your mid to late 20s.
So kids are getting these tools right when they have the least capability of actually controlling.
That cut off a little bit at the end, but of controlling their usage. So that seems a little doom and gloom. Like Steph said, we're going to kind of balance between, like, there's some real serious and negative consequences to social media use, but we want to learn how to use it in different ways. Just kind of holding on. All these things can be true at the same time. So you can all probably guess your teens are not really excited to hear a lecture from you on social media usage. This isn't something that they want to do. So we have to be a little bit creative about how we engage with them. And one way is just to approach it from a place of curiosity always. And here's some questions that we pulled from a resource just that you could kind of float out. We adapted them a little bit. So asking them questions about what is the coolest app for kids your age right now and why? Maybe approaching it from a friend angle. So like, how has, like, I see you guys are on Instagram all of the time. How has that affected your friends' mental health, and kind of see what they say about their friends? If they're open to it, like, how do you feel when you're using TikTok or Snapchat? Like, maybe it's really exciting and fun. So it can be a really good gauge for us as caregivers to notice, like, are they experiencing positive emotions when they're using something, or is it always kind of a down feeling? So these kind of questions can help you just kind of get some insight into your teens' reality when it comes to their social media usage. Even that last question, like, how do you think like it's different for parents or adults and teens, might give you some
they
insight.
love comparing the
Yeah.
two. So asking that question, I think, is a good one. And what I love about this generation of teens and adolescents is that they are so much more open to talking about their mental health.
They are.
And how they feel. And so it may be harder for us as adults to ask the question than it is for them to answer the question. So for asking these questions around, you know, I see you on Instagram a lot. Does it always make you feel good? And they will totally be honest. Well, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So they are ready to talk about these things. It's all about the approach. So I'm so glad that we're talking about saying it from a curious perspective, wondering like, I wonder, how do you feel when you're on Instagram? Or how do you feel when you're on Snapchat? What are like the accounts that you follow that make you feel really, really good? So that's one out of many positive things that I really enjoy about this population. Is they're ready to talk about how they're feeling, as long as you kind of approach it from that curious perspective.
Yeah. And be ready, because the answer that you get might be like, you know what, actually, I hate it. It's making me feel awful. And you're going to be like, I'm so ready to tell you to put it down and tell you what to do. And you got to resist that urge.
And ask, how can I support you with that? Or connect, because we're using it we're using social media too, and saying, you know what, there's some accounts that make me feel that way too. You know what I do? So, because they see us on it, we'll talk about that a little bit later too, about how to lean into that personhood.
And staying in curiosity, staying out of judgment. That's the way to keep the conversation going. And you don't have to tackle all these at one time, just kind of as it comes up, sprinkling it through. So how do we cultivate kindness? So one way is to start habits that promote kindness and well-being. So let's talk about those a little bit. We are going to actually we found 2 really cool videos from teens themselves about this topic. So we're going to start by hearing from them.
So the way you can use online interactions to spread or enhance kindness is by always being positive to situations. So like if someone is asking for help, you can coach them through what they need help with. Or if they're feeling down, you could also speak to them and help cheer them up.
I post kind quotes and positive affirmations, and on my personal social media, I always comment on my friends' photos saying, hey, I hope you have a great day, or that looks like a lot of fun, I wish I could be there, like that kind of thing. And for myself, I don't post anything that is harmful to others or to groups. I try to uplift others instead, and I don't keep my opinions to myself. I always voice my opinions, but I don't hurt others by voicing my opinions.
If you don't have anything to say that is, conducive, maybe just act the same way you would talk to that person in real life, I think.
If I saw cyberbullying online or unkind behavior, I would support that person as best as I can. I would also see if I can help them in a situation, if they have had comments on them of how they look or anything like that, or social media can get to people, and I want people to have a safe space to be able to be online without having to feel like they're being judged.
Speak up. The point of online platforms is to spread how you feel and share your emotions. So if you think something is unjust or hurts someone's feelings, stand up for them, because they'll appreciate it and it'll just generally make the world a better place.
What a good thing to do is to report it to whatever platform you're on and tell an adult, and then they can help from there based on what unfolds.
Belle, let's talk.
Social media is an amazing tool. However, it can also lead us to compare our lives, our bodies, and our experiences to other people. Today, I'm going to share healthy social media tips that I use whenever I'm feeling down after scrolling through my feed. Find the kindness. I share content that really resonates with my followers and reminds them that they can be anything they want to be. Don't hesitate to share positive comments on other people's pages, and don't put so much weight into the negative ones. Pause for a second. Take a second and pause to reflect on how the post is really making you feel. If you feel down about yourself after looking at a photo, then maybe it's a good idea to unfollow or mute that account. If a post makes you feel great about yourself, find other accounts like that. Try to check in with yourself regularly to see how social media is making you feel.
Those are good.
Those are some good
Yeah,
words
yeah.
of wisdom from our teens. And as I was watching, you know, I was just thinking about how significant peer relationships are at this time in teens' life. And I think we've talked about that before, but it really can be like when they're on social media, like if we ask them to get off, it can be like we're taking their friends away from them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a really real and significant thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that one of the teens on the first video talked about posting kind comments under posts, because I think sometimes, well, I've seen it sometimes, we see mean things happening, even our teens see mean things, and you just kind of keep scrolling and you don't realize, hey, I can be a part of the kindness here. I can say something that I notice is really cool. So there is this choice and this power to add kindness to the digital platform by posting. You know, that's really cool. And there's another piece that she talked about that was good for me, even as an adult. So I know that it's good for our teens, especially this is for Instagram in particular, is noticing if a post is making you feel not kind to yourself and muting it. So this is an option you can give your teen, because I've heard from a few that I don't want to unfollow because I don't want them to think that
I don't like them.
I don't like them. Because now there are apps out there where the other team can tell that you unfollowed them.
Right.
And they'll say, you unfollowed me or you blocked me.
You didn't like me.
Yeah.
It's an act of aggression.
And it takes that kindness away, but you can mute somebody to still, and they don't know that, to still take care of how you're feeling. So there's a lot of different things. Again, on the one pager, they'll have some links to how to better understand some of the apps, but I thought they all gave, and this is why we love, if you've watched our videos, you know, we love bringing in the voice of that population. So I love hearing from the teens. Around, I have the power to be kind on social media. So
I was thinking another video, if you watch our gratitude video, we talk about negativity bias, how we like focus where our brains are programmed to focus on the negative. So when your teens are on social media and they do get a negative comment, their brain is doing its job by helping them focus on that negative comment. It might make them feel like they're at risk of being left out or excluded, and it can be really hard to refocus onto positive from the negative. So that's just information to keep in mind. If you see your teen kind of like ruminating over something negative, that can be why.
And you brought up a really good point of when you see them on the phone, you can tell when they
you can see
scroll something, just like sometimes they'll slam it down.
But their face kind of falls, their body language changes. It can be hard to watch.
It can be.
And or we've been there too.
Speaking of us, we know that one way to
Belle, let's talk.
Is to model. How do we model healthy social media habits? And I know if I could see you, you're probably like, yeah, I know Stephanie and Tara. Even as adults, we kind of struggle with that too. But when we're thinking about cultivating that kindness, our kiddos look more at what we do than what we say. So we found a few ways to kind of model that. And just like we talked about from the beginning, it's not always about not looking at it. How do you use screen time in a creative and healthy way? Does your teen see you? I love coloring on mandalas. Even I have a little iPad mini. So there's so many self-care practices that you can do, watching videos of deep breathing and you actually following along with those, your teen watching you doing some mindfulness activities, you sharing some with them. These are really cool. Y'all, my mom texts me some all the time, but I love it. We're being kind, but using that screen time in a creative and a healthy way, them seeing you do that.
Oh, I love that you said that though too, because it also is showing, you know, teens are like, if you've never been on the apps, they're really not going to want to hear what you have to say about them. And so like, even your mom, like sending you something, you know, like, you're like, oh, you do, like, they might make fun of you, like you don't use it the right way, or, but like it will give you a little bit of credibility that you used it and enjoyed it in a way that you're not just judgmental of it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So using that screen time in a creative way, a healthy way. Also, this is a big one, being mindful of your reaction when you receive a notification. So for example, if you're in the middle of a conversation with your teen, and you get a notification, I know some people even have notifications that light up on their phones. When you get that notification, finish the conversation that you're having with, and that sounds like, oh yeah, but sometimes we just go, oh, hold on one second. And so what that communicated is this notification is more important than what you were just, the conversation that we're having.
And oh gosh, that I'm gonna totally throw my husband under the bus right now. And I don't know if anybody can relate because it happens to like different genders too, but he is the worst at like, he will get a notification. He's having like speaking a sentence and then he just stops talking. Like he'll be mid-sentence and then like, what? And my children are only like, my daughter's 4, but they'll start being like, dad, like they notice that he stopped talking and it drives me crazy too. Like, but we all have these habits because we get that notification and we really want to know what's
and
going
that's
on.
what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to notify you, but that's the pausing part that the young lady talked about a little bit. Just stopping it. I got a notification, but you know what? I'm going to check that later. Go ahead and finish your thought. And even if you need to pause a little bit and say, okay, so before I answer that, this is your grandma or this is someone saying this, but be mindful of your reaction when you're receive that. And when if you're talking, especially when you're talking to your teen or talking to your child, with teenagers, it's great that they're talking to you, right?
Exactly. This is like, don't miss them.
So if you interrupted with a notification, then that speaks volumes to them. And so just, again, don't judge yourself about it, but
because we
I mean,
I was judging my husband, but it's okay. But I was gonna say the other thing with teens is hypocrisy. So if you're asking them to do something that you can't do, they will call you on that immediately. So it's hard to. We gotta.
We're getting there. We're getting there. And then lastly, engage in regular screen-free time, both alone and with your teen and your family. And say it out loud. I think it's important to say, you know, I'm going to put my phone down because I feel like this time together is super important. Right. And so you're probably thinking, okay, so how is that cultivating kindness if you're not even using their phone? You're also putting some space in between you and the device, putting some space in between them and the device. So the next time that they pick it up, they're probably in a healthier space, right? It's also helping them realize that there's more in life than what's happening here on this screen. Here in this phone.
Because that is the real world for them too, but we know our kids and our teens need real life experiences. I just called it not real life, but in-person experiences. They need face-to-face interaction, time, playing games, having fun, going outside. They need these things away from their devices.
And when they pick that device back up, or when you guys are in the car, asking them questions around who do you follow that is really motivating. For me, it's Tabitha Brown, and even teens follow.
That's true.
Gives you just some sense of if she is kindness, right? And so
maybe you'll choose to follow someone that they follow. You can learn about.
Yes. So I mean, there's tons of ways to do that, but it starts with us. And so modeling some of those healthy social media habits is a great way to begin cultivating that kindness and teaching that to your teen.
Absolutely. If your teens are engaging with you about their social media usage, we wanted to include these kind of resources as well. Again, it's on your resource page, but questions that they can ask themselves before posting. So what we know about teen brains too is they're impulsive a lot of times, right? Maybe more so than, we know more so than we would be because their prefrontal cortex is still developing. So thinking through, how would I feel if this post was shared 100 people? Is it still okay for me to put out there? How would I feel if it's printed out? Could these words or pictures hurt someone? So kind of what am I putting out on social media? Like even just taking that pause, a pause before posting. I know you were talking about at the beginning stuff, this stuff now, you know, it sticks with us for life. Like once it's out there, it's out there. And again, that can be hard for teens to hear. It can feel like lecturing, but if you can help them to kind of develop some deliberative thinking around it, it can be something that helps them for life.
Yeah. And going back to helping them realize that they do have a choice.
Yeah.
So how would I feel if this was shared with 100 people? Thinking about that in a positive way.
Yes.
What can I post that if it were shared with 100 people, it would motivate 100 people. It would share kindness with 100 people. How would I feel if this were printed out
on the wall?
If I just posted something super creative or something super kind, or I started a kindness challenge at my school, how can I cultivate that kindness? Because I think so much we think about these in a negative way, like, if that's out in 100 people, you know, what would they think? But what would they think if I posted something kind? And a young lady said that in the video. I post affirmations, I post quotes, you know, and things. So if that were shared with 100 people, it's that ripple effect of kindness. So kind of flipping it too is also a helpful way for your teen.
And it feels great. Like I know back when Steph was on Instagram, like if she posts something and I was like, oh, that really is what I needed to hear in that moment. And it's such a great feeling to go back and forth like that. So it can be powerful, powerfully positive. So that another way that you can model, so we talked a lot about today about modeling kindness, is just naming it and posting things yourself when you're on these platforms. So what might that look like? Maybe it's posting like a beautiful image of someplace that you are, or someplace that you've been. What else? We were just talking about this, posting motivational quotes. Morgan Harper Nichols is another good one to follow. I love her beautiful quotes. If you're on Twitter, so maybe this is an inspiring quote of someone that you could follow and repost. What else do we have? So maybe you talked about like getting involved. So maybe there's a charity or donation that you can amplify through your social media, and then other people get involved with it too. Go ahead.
One thing that I was thinking too, again, about inviting social media in a kind way. So let's say you go on a trip with your family and your teen is there. Instead of saying, put your phones away, we're focusing on this. Instead saying, okay, I want to see who can take the most beautiful picture of where we are today. And then when you do that, you guys all look at it and then you ask, what was beautiful about this to you? What kind of quote? Teens are good with coming up with these very deep quotes, but inviting it in and saying, okay, so when you share that, what are you going to say? Well, if it were to go out to 100 people, what would you say in that picture? So again, how do we not push away the phone, but instead combine it with some of that face-to-face time too. Let's say we got the sunset, or we're going to go and eat at this really cool place. I know you guys love taking pictures of your food. I'm one of those too, to say, oh, who can take, let's see. So how do you invite that in? I think it's a great, because that picture at the bottom of nature is just beautiful, and teens love a challenge.
Oh yeah. For sure. Like you said, they're probably going to want to do it anyways. So you're really harnessing it and redirecting it in a positive way. And the last thing we have up here is just like, I went to Facebook and pulled this up. Someone had written to another friend as happy birthday, beautiful. And so even if you're not writing things that teens would write, this was someone my age, so writing things that teens would write, they're paying attention to what you write in the sense of, is it kind? And, you know, they're watching that again, or are you like in arguments, like on politics or whatever, like they're watching what you put out there. So just being aware of that, you know, they're always paying attention, even if they're not talking about it. So we know that.
So we hope that today you've kind of learned both ends of the spectrum, or it's not even learned, that it's got you thinking and wondering and holding both the powers of social media and how we do want to make sure it's a safe place for our teens. But then also, how can we use it to help cultivate kindness and teach them how to cultivate kindness and have them teach us how to cultivate kindness as well. So we hope this was helpful for you, and we hope that you post something kind today.
Yes. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.